Welcome to Health Simplified. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into dialysis,
Oh, yeah.
specifically when it becomes necessary and the potential complications that can arise.
Okay.
So to kind of set the stage, um, when do doctors typically recommend dialysis?
Well, you can think about it like this, our kidneys, they're these incredible filters constantly working to remove waste products from our blood.
Right.
But when they begin to fail, those waste products start to build up, and that leads to a condition that we call uremic syndrome.
Uremic syndrome.
Yes.
What are the signs that someone might be experiencing this?
You're right, it can be.
Yeah.
And it's like your body is slowly being poisoned from the inside out.
Oh, wow.
And so you'll see symptoms such as persistent fatigue,
Okay.
nausea that just won't quit, and even like this feeling of being itchy all over.
Oh, gosh.
And in severe cases, it can even lead to confusion and disorientation.
So it's not just about feeling lousy. It's a real threat to overall health.
Exactly. And it's not just that general buildup of toxins, but we can also have specific imbalances that become life-threatening.
Okay.
For instance, potassium, which
Right.
is a mineral that's usually regulated by the kidneys, can reach dangerously high levels.
Right.
And that's a condition called hyperkalemia.
Hyperkalemia.
Yes.
And I know that potassium is very important for heart function.
Right.
So too much of it could really disrupt that.
You're spot on. Hyperkalemia can lead to irregular heart rhythms, which can be extremely dangerous.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we've got toxin buildup and electrolyte imbalances as major warning signs.
Right.
What else might signal the need for dialysis?
Another key issue is fluid overload.
Okay.
Healthy kidneys maintain a very precise balance of fluids in our bodies, but failing kidneys struggle to keep up. And this can lead to a condition called extracellular volume expansion,
Okay.
where too much fluid accumulates outside of our cells.
So you might see swelling in the legs, ankles, or even the face.
Exactly, and this fluid buildup also contributes to high blood pressure, which puts an additional strain on the heart.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and in some cases, the blood can also become too acidic,
Right.
which is a condition called acidosis and may not respond to medication alone.
So it sounds like when the kidneys fail, it sets off a chain reaction impacting various systems in the body.
Precisely. And that's where dialysis steps in.
Okay.
It essentially takes over the kidney's job of filtering the blood and removing excess fluid and acts as a lifeline for individuals with kidney failure.
So it's literally a life-saving intervention.
Absolutely.
But I've also heard that dialysis itself isn't without its own set of challenges and potential complications.
That's true.
So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, while dialysis is crucial for survival, it does introduce new considerations into a person's life.
Okay.
One of the most immediate changes is the need for dietary restrictions.
That makes sense. If the kidneys aren't filtering as effectively, you wouldn't want to overload them with certain substances.
Exactly, and along with the dietary adjustments comes an often increased medication burden.
Okay.
We're talking about medications to manage blood pressure, electrolyte levels, and a whole host of other issues that can arise due to the kidney failure and the dialysis process itself.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act for both the patient and the medical team.
It is, and unfortunately, there's also an increased risk of hospitalization for individuals on dialysis.
Right.
This could be due to complications like blood clots, infections, or issues related to the dialysis procedure itself.
And I imagine the psychological impact of all this can be significant as well.
Absolutely.
Having to depend on a machine to perform a vital bodily function must be a lot to process.
It often means a major lifestyle shift.
Yeah.
There's this increased dependency on medical care, and feelings of anxiety and depression are not uncommon.
Those are all very real concerns that need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
It really paints a picture of this complex reality of dialysis. A life-saving treatment, but one that has its own inherent challenges and burdens.
That's true.
So can you walk us through the different types of dialysis that are available?
Of course, the two primary types of dialysis are hemodialysis, or HD, and peritoneal dialysis, or PD.
HD and PD.
They both achieve the same goal, which is filtering the blood,
Right.
but they go about it in very different ways.
Okay, so what are the key distinctions between the two?
With HD, think of it like an external filter.
Okay.
Your blood is pumped out of your body, cleansed by a machine, and then returned to your circulation. And this is usually done at a dialysis center 3 times a week.
Okay.
Although there are also home HD options and even nocturnal or long hours HD.
Home HD.
Yes.
That sounds intriguing. I imagine that could offer more flexibility for patients.
You're right. It can be a game changer for some individuals.
Yeah.
But it does require extensive training and ongoing support at home to ensure the procedure is performed safely and effectively.
That makes sense. So how does PD differ from this external filtering process?
Peritoneal dialysis takes a fascinating approach, and it utilizes your body's own natural filter,
Oh, wow.
the peritoneal membrane, which lines your abdominal cavity.
So it's like an internal filtering system.
Exactly. A special solution is infused into the abdomen.
Okay.
Waste products and excess fluid diffuse across that peritoneal membrane, and then that solution is drained out.
That's incredible. So no need for a machine with PD.
Correct. However, there are different types of PD as well, each with their own nuances.
Okay.
CSPD, which stands for Continuous Ambulatory Peritoneal Dialysis,
Okay.
is done manually several times a day.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's APD, or Automated Peritoneal Dialysis,
Okay.
which uses a machine to cycle the solution overnight while you sleep.
Mm.
And for folks who need a little extra help, there's also assisted PD.
So many options to consider.
Yes.
But I imagine, just like with any medical procedure, there are potential risks and complications associated with both HD and PD.
You are absolutely correct. Dialysis, while life-saving, is not a cure-all. It comes with inherent risks, and the specific challenges can vary depending on the type of dialysis that's chosen.
Okay.
And that's why it's so important to understand the potential downsides,
Right.
so we can make informed decisions and navigate this journey as safely as possible.
Absolutely. So let's dive into those potential complications.
Okay.
Can you first tell us about some of the general risks that apply to both HD and PD?
Certainly, we've already touched on dietary restrictions and medications, and those are considerations regardless of the type of dialysis.
Right.
Another ever-present risk is infection.
If your kidneys aren't functioning optimally,
Mm-hmm.
your immune system might also be compromised, right?
Exactly. Dialysis actually weakens the immune system further,
Oh, wow.
making individuals more susceptible to infections like pneumonia.
Huh?
And then there are infections that are specific to each type of dialysis that we'll get into later.
So it's like a constant vigilance against infection no matter which path you choose.
Right.
Are there any other general risks we should be aware of?
Unfortunately, yes, there's also an increased risk of hospitalization for individuals on dialysis,
Okay.
which can be due to infections, blood clots, or complications related to the dialysis procedure itself.
And that brings us back to the psychological toll we discussed earlier.
Yes.
Anxiety, depression,
Mm-hmm.
and the emotional weight of depending on medical care for survival.
It's a lot to process, and it's crucial that we acknowledge and address these very real concerns.
Okay, so those are the general risks that come with the territory of dialysis.
Right.
Now let's get specific. Can you tell us about the complications that are unique to hemodialysis?
Of course, because HD involves accessing your bloodstream directly, infections become a primary concern.
Okay.
We're talking about access-related infections where bacteria can enter the bloodstream through the access site used for connecting to the dialysis machine.
So you're referring to the point where they connect you to the machine, whether it's a catheter, a fistula, or a graft.
Precisely, these are all potential entry points for bacteria.
Right.
And if those bacteria reach your bloodstream, they can cause a catheter-related bloodstream infection or even septicemia, which is a life-threatening infection of the blood itself.
Septicemia sounds terrifying. Is that a common occurrence with HD?
Thankfully, it's not an everyday occurrence, but it is a very serious complication that we need to be vigilant about preventing.
Right.
And there are other challenges specific to HD. For example, hypotension or low blood pressure can occur during the dialysis session.
Why does that happen? Does the body struggle to adjust to the blood filtering process?
You got it. The rapid removal of fluid can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure.
Okay.
And that can lead to dizziness, fainting, and even more serious problems if it's not managed properly.
Right.
And then there's the issue of electrolyte imbalances.
Electrolytes, those are minerals like sodium and potassium.
Right.
But we already talked about potassium being a concern with failing kidneys in general.
Right.
You're right, we did, but with HD, we often see the opposite problem, which is low potassium or hypokalemia, which can cause fatigue, muscle weakness, and even heart rhythm disturbances.
So many things to keep an eye on, it sounds like. Dialysis requires constant monitoring and adjustments.
Absolutely, and it's not just about preventing complications, but also about ensuring the dialysis itself is effective.
Okay.
For instance, sometimes fluid overload can occur even with regular dialysis.
But isn't the whole point of dialysis to remove excess fluid? How can someone still experience fluid overload?
It's a tricky situation, particularly when the kidneys have completely failed
Right.
and can't remove any fluid on their own.
Yeah.
The dialysis machine needs to be calibrated very precisely,
Hmm.
and the individual needs to adhere to very strict fluid restrictions.
Okay.
If those two things are not in sync, then fluid can build up, leading to swelling, shortness of breath, and high blood pressure.
So it really highlights the importance of that collaborative approach we discussed earlier. The patient, their family, and the medical team working together to fine-tune that treatment plan.
Absolutely. And speaking of specific complications,
Yes.
have you ever heard of dialysis disequilibrium syndrome?
It rings a bell, but I can't recall the specifics. Can you refresh my memory?
Of course, DDS is a neurological condition that can occur sometimes in new dialysis patients.
Okay.
And it particularly happens when urea, which is a waste product, is removed too quickly from the blood.
Hmm.
It essentially causes the brain to swell.
Brain swelling. That sounds incredibly serious.
It can be, but thankfully it's usually temporary and it resolves as the body adapts to dialysis.
Okay.
And the symptoms can range from headaches and nausea to confusion, and in severe cases, even seizures.
So it's definitely something to watch out for, especially when someone is first starting HD.
Yes.
What other HD-specific complications are there to be aware of?
Unfortunately, there are a few more we need to cover.
Oh?
HD also carries a potential for cardiac arrhythmias, which are irregular heartbeats,
Okay.
and even an increased risk of sudden death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is likely due to a combination of factors, including the electrolyte imbalances, we talked about fluid shifts during dialysis, and just the general stress that HD can place on the cardiovascular system.
It sounds like HD really takes a toll on the heart. Are there any ways to mitigate that risk?
That's a great question, and it's one that researchers are actively exploring. Close monitoring, individualized treatment plans, and even exploring alternative forms of HD like nocturnal dialysis might help to minimize those risks.
That's reassuring to know. Are there any other concerns related to HD's impact on the body?
Yes, there's another important one, the potential for accelerated loss of residual kidney function.
Residual kidney function, you mean whatever kidney function is still remaining?
Exactly. Ideally, we want to preserve whatever kidney function is left.
Right.
Because even a little bit can make a difference in overall health and well-being.
Hmm.
But conventional HD, with its rapid fluid and electrolyte shifts, can sometimes damage those remaining nephrons in the kidneys,
Okay.
leading to a faster decline in function.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You need dialysis because your kidneys are failing,
Right.
but the dialysis itself can speed up that decline.
It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
and it underscores the need for those individualized treatment plans and close monitoring to minimize any potential negative impacts.
Absolutely. So accelerated kidney function loss gets added to our growing list of HD-specific complications. What else should we be aware of?
Well, there's also an increased bleeding risk associated with HD,
Ah.
particularly during the procedure itself.
Hmm.
This is mainly due to the use of heparin, which is a blood thinner that's given during dialysis, to prevent clots from forming in the machine.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want blood clots forming while it's being filtered.
Exactly.
Anything else?
There's one more big one to discuss.
Okay.
HD can also cause significant circulatory stress,
Okay.
which can have far-reaching effects beyond just the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Think about potential damage to the heart itself,
Okay.
but also to the brain and even the gut and kidneys.
Wait, gut damage. How does dialysis impact the gut?
It's all connected to those rapid fluid shifts and changes in blood flow that happen during HD.
Right.
And these can put stress on the blood vessels in the gut,
Okay.
leading to ischemia or reduced blood flow, which can actually damage that delicate lining of the intestines.
I never would have guessed that dialysis could have such widespread effects on the body.
It's a powerful reminder that everything in our bodies is interconnected.
Right.
And even a treatment that's targeting one specific organ can have these ripple effects throughout various systems.
It's both fascinating and a little bit daunting.
Yeah.
So we've got circulatory stress and its potential to impact multiple organs. Anything else on the HD list?
We also need to talk about inflammation.
Okay.
It's kind of a common thread that runs through many complications of HD.
When you say inflammation, are you talking about the typical swelling and redness we see with an injury?
That's one type of inflammation, but in this case, we're talking about a systemic inflammatory response
Oh.
that affects the entire body. And with HD, this inflammation can be triggered by a number of things,
Okay.
including subtle access infections that might not even be causing obvious symptoms,
Right.
issues with the biocompatibility of the dialysis materials themselves,
Okay.
and even a phenomenon called translocation of endotoxin from the gut.
Translocation of endotoxin. That sounds complicated. Can you break that down for us?
You're right, it is a bit complex.
Yeah.
But think of it like this. When the gut is congested or experiencing ischemia,
Okay.
as can happen with HD,
Right.
endotoxin, which is a component of bacteria that normally lives harmlessly in the gut, can actually leak out into the bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
And this triggers a very powerful inflammatory response throughout the body,
Okay.
which can contribute to a whole cascade of complications.
So it's like a chain reaction, starting with those rapid fluid shifts
Mm-hmm.
and ending with widespread inflammation.
Exactly. It's a reminder that gut health is incredibly important for individuals on HD. And we need to pay close attention to any signs of gut distress.
So we've got inflammation from multiple sources as a major concern with HD. Anything else to add to this list?
One more big one, malnutrition.
Malnutrition. But I thought people on dialysis have very strict dietary restrictions
Right.
to ensure they're getting all the nutrients they need.
It's not always that straightforward.
Okay.
Dialysis itself can contribute to malnutrition in a few ways.
Mm-hmm.
First, many HD patients experience a suppressed appetite,
Okay.
which is likely due to a combination of factors like that buildup of uremic toxins
Right.
and just the psychological impact of dealing with a chronic illness.
Right.
Then there's the protein loss that can occur during HD.
So the dialysis process itself can actually remove some of the protein that the body needs.
Yes, unfortunately, some protein is lost through the filter during HD,
Wow.
which can contribute to protein deficiency over time.
Okay.
And since protein is so essential for building and repairing tissues,
Mhm.
this loss can have a significant impact on overall health.
Wow. It's incredible how many things can potentially go wrong with hemodialysis. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to consider, but it's important to remember that we are discussing potential complications.
Right.
Not everyone on HD experiences all of these.
Okay.
And with proper management, close monitoring, and a strong patient-doctor relationship, many of these complications can be prevented or minimized.
That's reassuring to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered the general risks of dialysis and then went into a deep dive on the complications specific to HD.
Right.
Now let's switch gears and talk about the potential downsides of peritoneal dialysis.
Okay.
What are the big ones that come to mind?
With PD, one of the biggest concerns is peritonitis.
Peritonitis, refresh my memory on what exactly that is.
Peritonitis is an infection of the peritoneum,
Okay.
that membrane that lines the abdominal cavity and acts as the filter in PD.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens when bacteria enter the peritoneal cavity,
Okay.
usually through the catheter that's used to infuse and drain the dialysis solution.
So it's similar to those access-related infections we talked about with HD.
Exactly.
Just in a different location.
Exactly. And just like those other infections, peritonitis can be very painful and can lead to serious complications if it's not treated promptly with antibiotics.
Okay, so peritonitis is a major concern with PD.
Right.
What else should we be aware of?
Another risk is exit site infections.
Okay.
Where bacteria enter the body through the area where the catheter exits the skin.
So it's like a two-pronged infection risk with PD,
Yes.
both inside the abdomen and at the catheter exit site.
Precisely. And just like with HD, there's also the potential for malnutrition with PD.
But with PD, there's no blood being filtered out of the body. So how did malnutrition occur?
That's a great question. It's primarily due to protein loss.
Okay.
With PD, protein actually leaks out through the peritoneal membrane and into the dialysis solution.
Oh, wow.
Over time, this can lead to a protein deficiency.
Interesting. So even though the mechanisms are different,
Right.
protein loss is a common thread between both HD and PD. Are there any other nutritional concerns related to PD?
Yes, unfortunately, PD can also lead to appetite suppression,
Okay.
which can further contribute to malnutrition.
Mm-hmm.
This is often caused by the volume of fluid in the abdomen from the dialysis solution,
Right.
or by the hypertonic glucose solutions that are sometimes used.
Hypertonic glucose solutions. Could you explain what those are and why they're used?
They're basically sugar solutions that help to draw waste products and excess fluid across that peritoneal membrane.
Okay.
While they're very helpful for that dialysis process, they can also cause discomfort and a feeling of fullness, making people less likely to eat.
So between the protein loss, the appetite suppression, and the potential for a disturbed metabolic balance malnutrition is a real concern with PD.
Absolutely.
Are there any other PD-specific complications we should be aware of?
Yes, we also see accelerated muscle wasting in some PD patients.
Muscle wasting, how does that happen?
It's likely due to a combination of factors, including the protein loss we talked about, decreased activity levels that often accompany chronic illness, and underlying inflammation that can be present in individuals with kidney failure.
It sounds like PD can really impact muscle mass and overall strength.
It can.
Anything else to add to the PD complication list?
Let's not forget about loss of residual kidney function.
Okay.
Just like with HD-PD, can accelerate that decline in whatever kidney function remains.
So that's another commonality between the two types of dialysis.
Yes.
What else is unique to PD?
Well, we do sometimes see biocompatibility issues with PD, similar to HD, although the specific mechanisms might be different.
Okay.
And then there's the potential for problems related to target weight and ultrafiltration.
Can you clarify what target weight and ultrafiltration mean in the context of PD?
Of course, target weight is essentially the ideal weight a person should be at after dialysis.
Okay.
When all that excess fluid has been removed.
Right.
And ultrafiltration is the process of removing that fluid. If the target weight is set too low or the ultrafiltration is too aggressive, it can lead to dehydration, low blood pressure, and other complications.
So it's a delicate balancing act, just like so many other aspects of dialysis.
Exactly. Finding the right balance is crucial, and that's why individualized treatment plans and ongoing monitoring are so important with any type of dialysis.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about why someone might need dialysis,
Mm-hmm.
the different types of dialysis available,
Mm-hmm.
and the potential complications that can arise with each.
Right.
What I'm hearing is that both HD and PD come with a significant risk of complications.
Yes, unfortunately, that's true. Dialysis is a life-saving treatment, but it's not a perfect solution.
Right.
It comes with inherent risks and a significant impact on quality of life.
So how do you even begin to decide which type of dialysis is right for a particular person? What factors go into that decision?
That's a great question, and it's a decision that should always be made collaboratively,
Okay.
involving the patient, their family, and their healthcare team.
What are some of the key considerations in choosing between HD and PD?
Well, patient preference is paramount.
Right.
We want people to feel comfortable and empowered with their treatment plan,
Yeah.
but we also need to consider their lifestyle, any other health conditions. They have the availability of resources and support in their community and the expertise of the healthcare team.
So it's a very individualized decision,
Absolutely.
taking into account a whole range of factors.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to dialysis.
Yeah.
Each person's journey is unique, and finding the right path requires careful consideration and open communication.
Before we wrap up this section, I want to touch on one more thing I read about.
Okay.
The cardiovascular risks associated with dialysis. Is it true that dialysis significantly increases the risk of heart problems?
Unfortunately, yes, that's a crucial point. Both HD and PD significantly increase the risk of cardiovascular disease compared to people who are not on dialysis.
Yeah.
We're talking about an 8-fold increase.
Eightfold. That's a huge increase.
Yeah.
Why is the risk so much higher for people on dialysis?
There are a few reasons.
Oh.
For one, both types of dialysis can cause hemodynamic stress, meaning they put a strain on the heart and blood vessels.
Okay.
HD tends to cause more acute stress during the dialysis sessions themselves, while PD can have more long-term effects on the cardiovascular system.
So regardless of the type of dialysis, there's an increased risk of heart problems.
Unfortunately, yes. And then there are the metabolic changes and glucose exposure that are common to both types of dialysis,
Okay.
which also play a role in cardiovascular risk.
Glucose exposure, you mean from those sugar solutions used in PD?
Right. But it can also be a factor with HD, especially for people with diabetes.
How does glucose contribute to cardiovascular risk?
It's a bit complex,
Yeah.
but basically high glucose levels can damage blood vessels
Okay.
and contribute to the buildup of plaque in the arteries, increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes.
Wow, it's amazing how all these factors are interconnected. It's not just about the kidneys, it's about the entire body.
Exactly. It highlights the need for a holistic approach to dialysis care. The cardiovascular risks, the nutritional needs, and the overall well-being of each individual.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yes.
We've learned about the indications for dialysis, the different modalities, and the potential complications associated with each.
Right.
And we've seen how interconnected everything is, from fluid balance and electrolyte levels to cardiovascular health and even gut function.
It is.
Dialysis isn't just about replacing kidney function. It's about managing this complex interplay of systems within the body.
It is a complex interplay of systems.
And that's why it's so important to have open communication with your healthcare team.
Yes.
To ask questions and to advocate for your own needs and preferences.
Absolutely.
So what stands out to you as the most important takeaway from our deep dive today?
For me, it's the importance of understanding those risks and benefits of each dialysis modality
Okay.
and working closely with your healthcare team to choose the best option for your individual circumstances.
Right.
There's no one right answer. It's about finding the best fit for each person's unique situation.
That's such an important message. Well said.
Thank you.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a journey, that's for sure. And I think one of the things that often gets overlooked is that emotional and psychological impact of dialysis.
Right.
We've touched on it a bit, but I think it's worth emphasizing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's easy to get caught up in the technical details of dialysis,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't forget about the human experience at the heart of it all.
Exactly. Imagine having to adjust to this new reality
Right.
where a machine is now performing a vital bodily function for you.
Yeah.
There's often a sense of loss of control,
Mm.
a fear of the unknown,
Right.
and the constant worry about potential complications.
It must be so incredibly challenging to grapple with that loss of independence and the shift in your relationship with your own body.
It is, and it's not just about the physical changes.
Right.
It's about the social and emotional adjustments as well.
Mm.
Dialysis often requires significant lifestyle modifications,
Right.
and it can impact relationships, work, and overall quality of life.
It sounds like a ripple effect just touching every aspect of a person's life.
It really is, and that's why it's so important to have a strong support system in place.
Okay.
Family, friends, healthcare professionals who can provide emotional support, practical assistance, and just a listening ear.
Support groups can also be incredibly helpful, right?
Really.
Just connecting with others who are going through similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that could create a sense of community and shared understanding.
Absolutely. Sharing experiences, tips, and even just having someone who truly gets it can make a world of difference.
Right.
And it can help people feel less alone and more empowered to navigate those challenges of dialysis.
So it's not just about managing the physical aspects of dialysis.
Right.
It's about caring for the whole person,
Exactly.
mind, body, and spirit.
Precisely. And speaking of managing those physical aspects,
Yes.
let's circle back to the choice between HD and PD.
Okay.
What are some of the practical considerations that might sway that decision one way or the other?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get overwhelmed by all the technical details and the potential complications.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it comes down to finding the best fit for each individual's needs and lifestyle.
You hit the nail on the head, for instance, with HD.
Yes.
One of the biggest considerations is the time commitment.
Okay.
Traditional in-center HD requires 3 sessions per week,
Mm-hmm.
each lasting several hours.
That's a significant chunk of time, especially for people who work or have families or other commitments.
Exactly, and that's where home HD or nocturnal HD can be game changers.
Right.
Home HD allows people to dialyze in the comfort of their own homes,
Yeah.
often on a more flexible schedule. And nocturnal HD involves dialyzing overnight,
Go.
freeing up those daytime hours.
Those options sound much more appealing from a lifestyle perspective.
Right.
What about PD?
Mm-hmm.
What are the key lifestyle factors to consider with that modality?
With PD, it's more about the logistics of managing the dialysis exchanges throughout the day.
Exchanges remind me what those are.
Of course, the exchanges involve infusing the dialysis solution into the abdomen,
Oh,
letting it dwell for a period of time,
mm-hmm.
and then draining it out.
Right.
With CAPD, this is done manually several times a day.
So it requires a certain level of discipline and organization to fit those exchanges into your daily routine.
You got it. And it also requires a bit of dexterity and comfort with handling the catheter and the solution.
Are there any lifestyle restrictions with PD, for instance? Can people travel or swim while doing PD?
Those are great questions. Traveling with PD is definitely possible,
Okay.
but it does require some planning and coordination.
Right.
And swimming is generally discouraged because of that risk of infection.
So it's all about weighing the pros and cons and finding the modality that best aligns with your lifestyle and your priorities.
Precisely. And it's not just about lifestyle.
Right.
Other health conditions can also play a role in that decision.
Okay.
For instance, individuals with certain heart conditions
Mm-hmm.
might not be good candidates for HD because of those rapid fluid shifts involved.
And on the flip side, individuals with certain abdominal conditions might not be suitable for PD.
Exactly. It's all about considering the individual's overall health picture
Right.
and tailoring that treatment plan accordingly.
Speaking of tailoring treatment plans, what role do technological advancements play in improving the dialysis experience?
Technology is constantly evolving,
Mhm.
and we're seeing some exciting innovations in the field of dialysis.
Yeah.
For instance, there are new dialysis machines
Mhm.
that are more portable and user-friendly,
Right.
making home HD more accessible for a wider range of individuals.
That's great news. Are there any advancements specific to PD?
Yes, there are new types of dialysis solutions being developed
Right.
that might be more biocompatible and less likely to cause complications like peritonitis.
Sounds like research is constantly pushing the boundaries
It
and
is.
offering new hope for individuals living with kidney failure.
Absolutely. And beyond the technical advancements, there's also a growing emphasis on patient-centered care,
Okay.
which means involving patients in their treatment decisions,
Right.
providing them with the information and support they need, and addressing their individual needs and preferences.
It's so crucial. It's not just about treating the disease. It's about caring for the whole person.
Exactly. And it's about empowering individuals to take an active role in their own healthcare.
Speaking of empowerment,
Mm.
what are some practical tips for individuals who are facing that prospect of dialysis?
Yeah.
What can they do to prepare themselves mentally and physically for this journey?
That's a great question, first and foremost. I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. The more you understand about dialysis, the better equipped you be to make informed decisions and advocate for your own needs.
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Absolutely.
What other advice would you give?
I would encourage people to connect with others who are going through similar experiences.
Right.
Support groups, online forums, even just talking to friends or family members who have been through dialysis
Hmm.
can provide invaluable insights and support.
It's all about building that community and a support network.
Exactly. And it's also about taking care of your mental health.
Okay.
Dialysis is a major life change,
Right.
and it's normal to experience a wide range of emotions from fear and anxiety to sadness and grief.
So it's important to seek professional help if those feelings become overwhelming or interfere with daily life.
Absolutely. Therapists, counselors, support groups can all provide coping strategies and a safe space to process those emotions.
Are there any practical steps that people can take to prepare physically for dialysis?
Definitely one of the most important things is to manage any underlying health conditions,
Okay.
such as diabetes or high blood pressure.
Mhm.
These conditions can complicate dialysis and increase the risk of complications.
So it's about getting those things under control as much as possible before starting dialysis.
Exactly. It's also a good idea to start making lifestyle changes that will support your health during dialysis.
Mhm.
This might include eating a healthy diet, staying hydrated, getting regular exercise, and quitting smoking.
All great tips for overall well-being, whether you're facing dialysis or not.
You're right. Taking care of your physical health can make a big difference in how well you tolerate dialysis and how well you feel overall.
Before we move on to the next topic, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier,
Okay.
nocturnal HD.
Mm-hmm.
You said it can be a game changer for some individuals. Can you elaborate on why that is?
Of course, nocturnal HD, as the name suggests, involves dialyzing overnight while you sleep.
Right.
And this offers several potential advantages. First, it frees up those daytime hours for work, family, or other activities.
That's a huge benefit for people who lead busy lives.
Exactly. And because the dialysis sessions are longer and slower,
Okay.
nocturnal HD can be gentler on the body, leading to fewer side effects like hypotension and fatigue.
So it's a win-win for both lifestyle and physical well-being.
Exactly.
Are there any downsides to nocturnal HD?
Well, it does require some adjustments.
Okay.
You need to have a dedicated space in your home for the dialysis machine,
Right.
and you might need to adjust your sleep schedule.
Those are certainly things to consider. Are there any specific medical conditions that might make nocturnal HD a particularly good option?
Yes, nocturnal HD can be especially beneficial for individuals with difficult to control blood pressure,
Okay.
or those who experience severe side effects with conventional HD.
It sounds like nocturnal HD is a really valuable tool in that dialysis toolbox, offering more flexibility and potentially fewer side effects.
Exactly. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely worth exploring if you're facing the prospect of HD.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Biocompatibility issues.
Okay.
What are those and how do they affect dialysis patients?
Biocompatibility refers to how well the materials used in dialysis interact with the body.
Okay.
For instance, with HD, the dialysis membrane and other components of the machine
Right.
can actually trigger an inflammatory response in some individuals.
So it's like an allergic reaction to the dialysis equipment.
You could think of it that way.
Okay.
And this inflammation can contribute to a whole host of complications, including fatigue itching and even long-term damage to organs.
That's Sounds concerning.
With-
What about PD? Are there biocompatibility issues with that modality as well?
Yes, there are. The dialysis solution used in PD
Hmm.
can also trigger an inflammatory response in some individuals,
Okay.
leading to symptoms like abdominal pain, cramping, and cloudy effluent.
Effluent. What does that mean?
Effluent is the term for that used dialysis solution that's
Okay.
drained from the abdomen.
Got it. So cloudy effluent is a sign that something might be off.
Exactly. It could be a sign of infection, inflammation, or other problems.
Are there any ways to address biocompatibility issues?
Yes, there are. For instance, with HD, there are new types of dialysis membranes being developed
Right.
that are more biocompatible and less likely to trigger that inflammatory response.
And with PD, are there alternative solutions available for people who experience biocompatibility issues?
There are. There are different types of dialysis solutions available,
Uh,
and your doctor can work with you to find one that's best tolerated by your body.
It sounds like finding the right materials and solutions is really key to minimizing those biocompatibility issues and improving the overall dialysis experience.
Absolutely. And it's an area of ongoing research, so we're constantly learning more about how to improve biocompatibility and reduce that risk of complications.
Before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to touch on a topic that I think is often overlooked but incredibly important:
Okay.
the financial burden of dialysis.
You're absolutely right. Dialysis is a very expensive treatment,
Right.
and the costs can add up very quickly.
What are some of the major expenses associated with dialysis?
Well, there's the cost of the dialysis sessions themselves,
Okay.
whether they're done in-center at home or overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the costs of medications, transportation, and other related expenses.
It sounds like it can be a really significant financial strain for individuals and families.
It can.
Are there any resources available to help people manage these costs?
Yes, there are a number of government programs and nonprofit organizations that provide financial assistance for dialysis patients.
That's reassuring to know. It's important for people to know that they're not alone in facing these challenges
Mm-hmm.
and that there are resources available to help.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Are there any other financial considerations related to dialysis?
Yes. It's important to think about those long-term financial implications of dialysis.
Okay.
It can impact your ability to work, and it can lead to significant medical expenses over time.
So it's important to have those open and honest conversations with your healthcare team, your family, and your financial advisor
Absolutely.
to create a plan that addresses your individual needs and circumstances.
Exactly. It's all about planning ahead and being proactive.
Well, this has been an incredibly informative deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground, from the basics of dialysis to the complexities of choosing the right modality
Mm-hmm.
and managing all the various challenges that can arise.
Right.
It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you and our listeners.
Likewise.
I hope it empowers them to navigate the world of dialysis with more knowledge, confidence, and hope.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one final question.
Okay.
What's the most important message you want listeners to take away from our conversation today?
That's a great question. I think the most important message is this. If you or someone you love is facing the prospect of dialysis, know that you are not alone. There are resources available, advancements being made, and a whole community of people who understand what you're going through.
Such a powerful message.
Thank you.
It's a reminder that even in the face of challenges, there's always hope and support available.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that we're all in this together.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, the power of community and shared experience. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone in facing these challenges can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to emphasize that dialysis is not a death sentence.
Right.
It's a life-sustaining treatment that allows individuals to live meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Yeah, that's such a crucial message.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the complexities and the potential downsides of dialysis.
Right.
But we can't lose sight of the fact that it's giving people the gift of time. Time to spend with loved ones, time to pursue their passions and make memories.
Exactly. And with advancements in technology and treatment approaches, the outlook for individuals on dialysis is constantly improving.
Speaking of advancements, are there any exciting developments on the horizon that you're particularly optimistic about?
There are several areas of research that hold great promise.
Okay.
One area that's particularly exciting is the development of artificial kidneys.
Artificial kidneys, that sounds like something out of science fiction.
I know, right? But it's becoming more and more of a reality.
Wow.
Researchers are working on creating implantable devices that can mimic the functions of a healthy kidney,
Mm-hmm.
eliminating the need for dialysis altogether.
That would be an absolute game changer for individuals with kidney failure.
It would.
Are there any other promising areas of research?
Another area that's generating a lot of buzz is regenerative medicine.
Okay.
Scientists are exploring ways to regenerate damaged kidney tissue
Mm.
using stem cells or other innovative approaches.
So instead of just replacing kidney function, the goal is to actually repair the kidneys themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a bold vision, but the potential is enormous.
Yeah.
And even if these futuristic treatments are still a few years away,
Right.
there are things that we can do today to improve the lives of individuals on dialysis.
Like what?
Well, one area that's gaining increasing attention is the role of lifestyle interventions.
Okay.
Simple things like eating a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and managing stress can have a significant impact on overall health and well-being, even for people on dialysis.
So it's not just about the medical treatments. It's about embracing a holistic approach to health and well-being.
Exactly. It's about empowering individuals to take an active role in their own care and to live their best lives possible, even with the challenges of dialysis.
That's a wonderful message of hope and empowerment.
Thank you.
Before we sign off, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
All right.
Any final words of wisdom or encouragement?
I would just say this. If you are on dialysis or if you know someone who is, remember that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole community of support out there, and there's always reason to hope.
Right.
Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep advocating for your own health and well-being.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your expertise and your insights.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been a truly illuminating conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for taking the time out to listen to our deep dive. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed.